Okay, congratulations to Ben Buckley, a winner on his first appearance this year in the Caterham Graduates Racing Club. And next up on track, it's going to be our second race of the day for the CNC Heads Northwest Sports and Saloon shortly. 20 minutes plus 1 lap for them. The grid for that race was set by the second quickest time in this morning's qualifying session. In much drier conditions, we'll bring you the grid in a moment. They're already starting to form up out there. Might be 1 or 2 cars missing after problems in the earlier race and in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see who is out there. Okay, here's your grid then. Paul Rose, the winner of race 1 on pole in the Saker, alongside the Spire of number 94, John Wolfit's class winner in race 1. Second row, number 13, Paul Dobson with the low-cost 7. Number 18, Luke Armiger in the Vauxhall Tigra Space Flame, I don't think is there, so he may well be a non-starter. Third row should be Steve Harris, 47 with the Saker, and number 123, Rick Wood with the Skyline. He went up in smoke, sadly, in race 1, so I don't know if we'll see the Skyline out. David Clark in the third of the Sakers, number 46 on row 4, alongside Andy Bicknell, 221 with his Ginetta G50. Row 5, 27, Gary Wardle with the Seat Cupra, and Darren Owen will not be starting in his Space Frame Escort, engine failure in qualifying, sadly. Row 6, Jack Egar's BMW, he was a retirement in race 1. Don Hughes is there with the Peugeot 306. Row 7, Tim Foxlow will not be starting with the Escort Space Frame, likewise problems in qualifying. Jamie Cryer will be there, number 1, with his Ginetta. Row 8, we should see the 2 Special Saloon and GT cars, Roger Evans, Alfa Romeo, and Simon Alloway in the Lotus Esprit V8s. Unsure if they're there, just trying to see in the background if they are on the grid. Don't think they are. Row 9 is Paul Rotherow in the Citroen alongside Guy Carter's TVR Tuscan. Row 10, Richard Hall in the Caterham, Ian Bruce's Honda, Bruce Carter's Honda CRX alongside Graham Smith's Mazda MX-5 on row 11, Chris Mary's and Kingsley Ingram on row 12, Civic and Ford Mustang. Row 13, Rick Walker's BMW Mini, David Green's Honda. Row 14, Rob Wakelin's Peugeot. That didn't come out set after qualifying, so I don't think that's there. Peter Kukulas in the MR2. And finally, the Fiestas of Jake Johnson and Brian Allen. Rick Wood is there. The Skyline is out there. The Alfa Romeo is there. There's Roger Evans. So the Alfa Romeo Special Saloon has made it out. The Lotus is not there. The Lotus Chevrolet. Are we missing anybody else from the back? Is that the Caterham? Richard Hall starting from the back, it looks like it. Behind Jake Johnson's Fiesta. Brian Allen's Ford Fiesta is not there. Let's see if the Alfa Romeo can have a better run this time. They are missing a few. That's on their green flag lap. There is Paul Rose, dominant winner by about 11 seconds in race 1 over his fellow Saker of Steve Harris. There's John Wolfitt in the Spire GTR. They will have a second green flag lap in view of the change of conditions. There's Paul Dobson, number 13, the low-cost 7 in the Saker of Steve Harris. Luke Armiger is a non-starter with the Tigra Space Frame. He broke down in race 1. It's not just drivers from the Northwest who take part in this series. Luke Armiger from Essex. You've got Don Hughes from Hampshire. Paul Rotherow and Brian Allen are from the West Midlands. Paul Rose from Leek in Staffordshire. Darren Owen from Staffordshire as well, from Hensford. Raced for many years at Hensford Raceway in bangers and hot rods. So he picked up the nickname Deadly Daz from his days in the bangers, but sadly unable to race today. John Wolfitt might be in with a chance. He also races in the Darlington and District Motor Club Sports and Saloon Series up at Croft Circuit and is a regular winner there. The Spire. There's the Calsonic Skyline. That car's been in action at Goodwood this year as well. It was BTCC driver Jake Hill who was driving it there over the last couple of years, along with its owner Rick Wood. The Godzilla Skyline, as some call it. There's been an action at the Silverstone Classic with it as well. This will be a 20 minutes plus 1 lap race, so when the clock counts down to 0, the lap board will go out. This championship does it slightly differently. There's the Godzilla skyline. That's going to be a handful in these wet conditions. Gary Wardle's there with the Seat. And Rick Wood is pulling into the pits, so is David Clark, so maybe they're going to start from the pit lane. Cars on the grid then, and in the pit lane, ready for race number 2 of the weekend for the CNC Heads Northwest Sports and Saloon Car Championship. 2 of the Sakers have pulled in, Steve Harris and David Clark. Rick Wood in the Skyline is in the pit lane. Chris Mary's with his Honda Civic as well. So there's not going to be all that many cars left to start from the grid, whether they're making late adjustments here. So Rick Wood and Chris Mary's, they're going to start from the pit lane. Hopefully the Sakers are going to join in as well. It's the 3rd Saker of Paul Rose, who will start from pole position on the grid alongside John Woolfit in the Spire GTR. Paul Dobson in the low-cost 7 on 2nd row. There's a gap next to him where Luke Armiger should have been. He's not out. There's now a gap on row 3 where both of row 3 should have been, and a gap behind that. So there's quite a lot of gaps on the grid. Hopefully the Sakers are going to start from the pit lane as well. Gary Wardle's there with the Seat. Andy Bicknell in the Ginetta. No Jack Egar, the BMW M3 is not there. Don Hughes is there with his Peugeot 306. Jamie Cryer's little Ginetta G20 number 1. Roger Evans in the Alfa Romeo Special Saloon is there. Green flag waves at the back of the grid then. It's a 20-minute race plus 1 lap. You can see some of the variety towards the back of this slightly reduced grid. The red lights come on then, and ready to rumble with the CNC Heads Northwest Sports and Saloons. Away they go. Super start by John Woolfit in the Spire GTR. Paul Rose using the power of the Saker. And look at Paul Dobson at the outside in the low-cost 7. It's 3 wide into Redgate for the first time. Paul Dobson, I think, has lost it. We saw the back of the low-cost 7 come round there. Now, has he saved that? So I'm not sure. No, there he is, going over the gravel. Heading down the Craner curves then now. Who has got the lead? It's Paul Rose and John Woolfit fighting it out for the lead. Andy Bicknell is next through, and Jamie Cryer's going well. He's up there in 4th overall, I think, in the little Ginetta G20. There's Paul Dobson. He's recovered from running wide there, nearly spun it. Rejoined over the gravel. There are the leaders. It's John Woolfit in the Spire GTR. He gets a bit of a twitch coming out of McLean's, and through goes Paul Rose. Didn't take him long. Takes the lead from John Woolfit. They are in different classes, those two. Paul Rose Class A, Woolfit's Class B. Still treacherous out there, as you can see, these two sports racers twitching on the turns. Down into the chicane for the first time. Paul Rose, vastly experienced racing driver, heads the pack ahead of John Woolfit. They're a long way clear of, I think it's Andy Bicknell in 3rd place in the black Ginetta. They're way ahead of him. There he is. The Ginetta G50 in 3rd place. 4th is Paul Rotheroe, the Citroen Zara. So we said it's well known as a rally car, the Zara. He started back on row 9 and he's already up into 4th place. Start to sort themselves out then. Andy Bicknell. Did Andy Bicknell come out of the chicane? He hasn't come up on the timing there. Is his transponder not working? Wait to see if that corrects itself. Yes, I think his transponder isn't working. There's Rick Wood in the Nissan Skyline, drawing up onto the side of Rick Walker in the BMW Mini. Mastering the power of that machine. He is at his most comfortable, Rick Wood, in big, powerful saloon cars. Graham Smith there hits the water splash in the MX-5. And there's that Alfa Romeo, Roger Evans in the Alfa Special Saloon Giulietta, as I call it, with the 8C engine. Remarkable machine, that one. Yes, Andy Bicknell is still there in 3rd place, I can tell you. His transponder isn't working, so he didn't come up on the timing straight away. 4th, it's Paul Rotheroe. Then we've got Gary Wardle in the Seat. Jamie Cryer is in 6th place. Roger Evans in 7th. There's the Seat Cupra in 5th. Paul Dobson has recovered to 8th. Then it's Ian Bruce and Guy Carter rounding out the top 10. We are in for some unusual results in this one, I reckon. two Sakers, they have joined in from the pits, I think, the other two Sakers, so watch for them coming through. Paul Rotheroe is going brilliantly up there in 4th overall in the Citroën Zara. He's leading Class E. And one man who won't like that is Jamie Cryer, the championship leader. Gary Wardle, he leads Class D. Paul Dobson behind him, he's a Class B run, that's being led by John Wolfett. Andy Bicknell in 3rd place, the Ginetta going well, slides it out there. There's Paul Rotheroe, the man from Walsall in the West Midlands. I think he runs Aldridge Motor Bodies. Down the hill they come. Clear of Paul Dobson, who's now into 5th. He's got the low-cost 7 past Gary Wardle. Roger Evans is 7th. Jamie Cryer has dropped back to 8th in the less powerful little Ginetta G20. Rick Wood in the Skyline is up to 11th, having started from the pit lane. We should see the Skyline come through shortly. It's Paul Rose out in front. He's already cleared off in front of John Wolfett. Those two are about 20 seconds ahead of everybody else. There he is. Paul Rose, he's 7 3/4 seconds clear already of John Wolfett. So as long as he keeps going, he's got the overall win saved up already. There is Jake Johnson in the pits in the Ford Fiesta. He's pulled in. We'll wait to see where the other two Sakers get up to as well. They started from in the pits. I think they are out there. See if we can see them on the timing. Yeah, Steve Harris is down in 19th place. David Clark 17th at the end of the previous lap. There's Paul Rotheroe in the Aldridge Motor Bodies Citroën Zara VTS, trying to chase after Andy Bicknell for 3rd. We'll have to wait to see the gap because Andy Bicknell's transponder isn't working. The lead gap is 12.6 seconds now. Paul Rose is lapping 5 seconds a lap faster than Paul Wolfett. John Wolfett, rather. Paul, his brother, does race in this series occasionally with his Lotus Elan clone. There is Exige clone, I should say. There is the 47 of Steve Harris. Now, where's he got up to now, Steve Harris, having started from the pits in the mean green Seiko? Behind him is David Clark. They're behind Don Hughes in the Peugeot, so they're up to 15th and 16th behind the 306. Don Hughes struggling with the conditions a bit here. Through the water splash. Just over 12.5 seconds in it. Bicknell is 16.5 seconds further back in 3rd. I can see Paul Rose and John Wolfett lapping the entire field here, if things go their way. There's Steve Harris making his way up the order. It's the class leaders we need to keep an eye on. There's our Class B leader, that's John Wolfett. He's been left on his own now that Paul Rose has pulled away. He's 18 seconds off Paul Rose and about 16 seconds clear of Andy Bicknell in the Ginetta. Class D is being led by Gary Wardle, Class E Paul Rotheroe, and Class F, further back down the order for the more standard cars, it's Graham Smith in the Mazda MX-5. Fastest lap of the race by Paul Rose, 1:22.464. There is Jamie Cryer. Now he's 2nd in Class E, in 8th place overall. He's lost out to Rick Wood in the Skyline, who is now up to 8th place. So making things a bit more interesting here. Some of the quicker cars starting from the pit lane as they're charging their way up the order against the less powerful stuff. Rick Wood is now ahead of Roger Evans. 2 extraordinary cars there in one shot. Beautiful Skyline. Calsonic livery, of course, will be famous to Gran Turismo players, as we said earlier. Those who've been to the Goodwood meetings or the Silverstone Classic for the historic touring car events there will have seen that car. That flash of flame out of the exhaust. That's what we like to see. We want flames. Just out of the exhaust, of course. We don't want anybody catching fire. There's Jamie Cryer, still there in 9th place behind Rick Wood. Here comes Paul Dobson. He's got back up the order now and he's challenging Paul Rotheroe. He goes through. Rotheroe goes wide. They've got ahead of the Ginetta as well. Rotheroe just overcooking the chicane a bit slightly there. So that means Dobson is third overall. Rotheroe is fourth. Bicknell's fallen back to fifth. Now Dobson is 21 seconds behind John Wolfett. And John Wolfett in turn is 22 seconds behind Paul Rose. Bicknell pulls the Ginetta back ahead of Rotheroe for fourth place. Is that blue sky I see? Did not make too many comments, or put the curse of the commentator on the weather. There's our leader, he's in the spray somewhere. He's got David Clark behind him in another of the Sakers, slapping 128 Ian Bruce in his Honda. David Green failed to finish race 1 in his Civic. There is David Clark, he's up to 15th now. Where's Steve Harris? He's up to 10th from the back. There's Guy Carter with the TVR Tuscan. That's a hard car to handle in the dry, never mind in weather like this. That TVR, I think, is the one that Jean-Francois Biel, the French-born driver, used to race in this championship many years ago, the dark green liveried car. Chris Marries used to race a TVR as well many years ago. The lead gap is up to 28 seconds now. Pulling away at about the rate of 5 or 6 seconds a lap, Paul Rose. So he's got this race in the bag as long as the car lasts the distance. We're coming up to halfway.
Is anti-physical, who just seems to have gone off the board a little bit the last couple of laps. Yeah, and I couldn't think there's anything wrong with the engine, but
27 of Gary Wardle, he leads Class D in the Seat Cupra. Who's that looming in his mirrors? Here comes Rick Wood in the Skyline, here comes Godzilla. Through the water splash. Gary Wardle, who's raced, as we said earlier, various cars in this series over the years. He's had a Ginetta, a BMW Mini Cooper, Porsche 911. I remember a rather scary incident, I think it was in the Ginetta, when he stalled on the grid at Anglesey in North Wales a few years ago and was lucky not to be walloped by the pack behind him. Blue flag being waved there with second place man coming through the back markers. There's Richard Hall in his Caterham. He starts at the back of the grid, running in 18th place. Now Jake Johnson's back out in the Ford Fiesta. He may have been in to clear his windscreen, I think. It's Jake Johnson running in Class E with the Fiesta. He's running in 22nd place, having called into the pits a couple of laps ago. Smart little Ford Fiesta, 1800cc. I think it's a car that was originally in the Fiesta Championships, run for many years. And Paul Rose coming up to lap his running mate Steve Harris, who's now 8th. Where's the other Saker? 12th place, David Clark. Got ahead of Ian Bruce now. Rick Wood is now in 5th position. He's got ahead of Gary Wardle. There he is, and there soon's going to be lapped by Paul Rose, who's completed 8 laps. Lapping in the 123s now. Paul Dobson is 3rd, ahead of Paul Rotheroe. Rotheroe still leads Class E. Could be on for his best ever overall results here in that 4th place if he keeps going. Bicknell is 5th in the Ginetta. There is the Skyline, now got ahead of Gary Wardle in the more modern Seat Cupra. Another flash of flame from the exhaust. Rick Wood has raced so many different classic saloon cars over the years. He's a Ford Capri specialist. He's also raced super touring cars, old Thunder saloons, including the Vauxhall Calibra. He's even got Paul Rose a bit sideways on the curb there, halted together. Rick Wood's even got an old Australian V8 supercar Holden Commodore. I think it's an ex-Garth Tander car he's got in his collection. Runs CNC cylinder heads. Specialist in classic saloon engines. He lets the Sakers through there. Rick Wood, he's running in 5th place. Paul Rose continues his relentless pace up front. Rooster tails of spray from the back of the Sakers. Now here's our class leader in Class F, we caught a glimpse of there, I think it is. Yes, that's Bruce Carter. He's just taken the lead of that class, in fact, from Graham Smith in the MX-5. So Bruce Carter is now leading Class F. Graham Smith just pipped him to the class win in race 1, so roles being reversed here at the moment. 7 minutes of this race to go. Little Honda CRX, beautiful design of car. David Green in his Honda, and Rick Walker's BMW Mini. They're about to be lapped by John Wolfett, second place man. What's the gap going to be this time? 43 seconds is now the lead gap. Still lapping at 5 seconds a lap quicker is Paul Rose. Oh, Steve Harris sliding about there, and he lets Paul Rose through at last. Yeah, the Sakers, they're running mates these, so they're just having a bit of fun racing together there, but a mistake from Steve Harris. He's got a bit too much power fed in there to the Subaru powered machine, and he drops behind our race leader to lap him. Paul Dobson in the low-cost 7 still third, a further 22 seconds down on Wolfett. Paul Rotheroe is about to be lapped out. Here comes Andy Bicknell attacking Rotheroe. Try and go through on the outside into Redgate over the river of standing water. That's the worst section of the track at the moment. Rotheroe holds on. This is a good run by Paul Rotheroe in the Zara. Oh, we said a Citroen Zara used to be used in ice racing as well as rallying. It probably is a bit like ice racing out there at the moment. There's the Skyline, still there in 6th position. He's behind Steve Harris now. The Saker up to 5th. You've just seen him get lapped, so there's only 4 cars on the lead lap now, I think. Just have to wait for everything to correct itself. No, Harris is 6th and Wood 7th. We have to wait for the timing to correct itself because Andy Bicknell's Ginetta's transponder isn't working, so he has to be timed manually, and it takes a bit of a delay. Rotheroe is now going to be lapped. So everybody up to 4th place has been lapped by the flying Paul Rose. He's raced Road Saloons, he's raced Radicals, he's raced Fun Cup, the series he promotes. Full-time in motorsports is Paul Rose, and a great guy he is as well. Very talented and very rapid driver. Here comes Steve Harris. Now this is for position, this is not lapping cars. This green Saker has caught Andy Bicknell. Now remember, Steve Harris started from the pits. When he's made up the ground, he's going past Bicknell, he's going past Rotheroe as well. That'll put him into 4th place. So 3 cars on the lead lap. Wait to see if Wolfett can Rose can catch Wolfett and Dobson. Can he win by a full lap here at Donington? Let's have a look back at the classes. Wolfett leads Class B, no entries in Class C. Rick Wood now leads Class D. He's got the Skyline ahead of the Cupra of Gary Ward. 3rd in Class D is Rick Walker's BMW Mini. That is down in 12th overall. Class B is led by Wolfett ahead of Dobson by 23 seconds. And 3rd in Class B is David Green's Honda. Class E, that's being led by Paul Rotheroe, Jamie Cryer 2nd, and Ian Bruce's Honda 3rd. Class F, that's Bruce Carter ahead of Graham Smith. They're the only 2 runners in Class F. There is John Wolfett, 2nd place. There are your class runners confirmed. The leader runs a bit wide there on these chicanes, gathers it up on the curb. There's Gary Wardle, still 2nd in Class D behind Rick Wood, 6 seconds behind the Skyline. The order is Rose, Wolfett, Dobson, Rotheroe. Now Harris 4th now, apologies. We've got a yellow flag out coming into the chicane. Has somebody come to grief there? See as Gary Wardle comes through here. Let's see if anybody has gone into the gravel at the Roberts chicane. Was it just a temporary yellow flag for a spin? I'm not sure. There goes Paul Rose. There's Peter Kukulas, the MR2 Roadster, Mark 3 MR2. He's 21st. May have been just for yellow flag for a spin there. I couldn't see anybody off. There goes Rose. 2.5 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Best lap of the race, a 122.464. Everybody else lapping in the 127s, 128s. Wolfett is nearly a minute down now on Paul Rose. There is Bruce Carter leading Class F. There's Graham Smith in second place in the MX-5. David Clark in his Seeker, he's ninth. The leader comes through the chicane. Rick Walker's gained 2 places on the last lap. He's up to 10th ahead of Cryer and Guy Carter. The TBR struggling in the wet. Oh, Paul Rose sideways. The leader's going to spin it. Oh, Paul Rose, he's in the gravel. Oh, goodness, can he get out of there? Now, it's a rear-wheel drive car. He needs to be careful here. He's going to get out, I think. Disaster averted. Good save, Paul Rose. Now he's a minute in the lead over John Wolfett, so he's okay. He'll still be leading. He's rejoined just in front of Steve Harris, his running mate there. Oh, that was scary for Paul Rose. Let's see if he can see what he did. He just hit the standing water, I think, coming into Redgate Corner there. Here he comes. And the back end just breaks away as he turns in. Aquaplane's off. He just hits the edge of the gravel. His heart must have been in his mouth there. Paul Rose has not only managed to get the car out of the gravel, if he'd spun the wheels too much there, it would have bogged down. But he saved it. His lead over John Wolfett was a full minute at the end of the previous lap, so he's okay. He's rejoined in the lead. 40 seconds left on the clock before the clock counts down to 0. Of course, when it does, we will start the last lap. There's Roger Evans, still going in the Alfa Romeo. Where's he in the order? He's 14th at the moment. Ian Bruce has dropped down the order in his Honda, so either he's struggling or it's him who had the spin at the chicane. Yep. Paul Rose struggling at the chicane there as well. I wonder if something's happened to his tyres, because he seems to be struggling a bit here. Right, so, I see a last lap board, so the clock hadn't quite gone to 0, but we're going into the last lap this time anyway. Rose just taking it carefully, he doesn't want to spin again. There's his teammate Steve Harris behind him. Paul Rose and Steve Harris has lost it now. The other Seeker's going off. He goes grass tracking. Just about gets it back on. Mind that Alfa Romeo. We don't want that damage. He joins in front of Chris Marys with the Honda Civic. Okay, I think we're going to see the checkered flag this time, because I saw the board out from the marshals on the start-finish line. The clock hadn't quite gone to 0. There were 10 seconds or so left. Paul Dobson has now been lapped. He's in third, so we're going to finish with just 2 cars on the lead lap. Paul Rose can afford to take it carefully to the flag from here. Surviving that late scare. Here he comes, the man from Leek in North Staffordshire. Paul Dobson sideways across Coppice there in the background. They slip and slide their way home. Or is it going to be checkered flag at this time for Paul Rose in the Seeker? Here he comes in for his second win. Surely it's going to be a checkered flag this time. There it is. Paul Rose takes the second win for the CNC Heads Northwest Sports and Saloons. Paul Dobson comes over in third, a lap down, and wins Class B. Steve Harris, despite that late moment, will come in fourth place. Who's going to be second overall? It's going to be John Wolfett. There's Rick Wood in the skyline. Paul Rotheroe will take a brilliant 5th overall. He can be proud of that, and he wins Class E at a canter. Andy Bicknell is 6th. Rick Wood will take 7th in the skyline, and he wins Class D ahead of this man, Gary Wardle. He's going to come over in 8th place. Just waiting for John Wolfett to come in to win Class B. Class F, this time will be won, I think, by Bruce Carter, unless Graham Smith has caught him late on. We'll wait and see. Over the line comes Don Hughes in the Peugeot. Here's John Wolfett, the only other car left on the lead lap. He comes in to take second place, and he will win Class B. Finishing 59 seconds down on Paul Rose. There's David Clark. He recovered from starting from the pits to take 9th place. 4th in Class A behind Andy Bicknell. And here comes Class F. Honda versus Mazda. Graham Smith closing, but it's going to be too late this time. Bruce Carter, the Merseysider, is coming in to win in the little Honda CRX. Well done to him. He will finish in 19th overall. Graham Smith 20th. We'll confirm the full official results in a moment. I think they're all in now. Jamie Cryer, the overall championship leader, second in Class E. Not the best of days for him. At least he got there. So a bit of a scare there for Paul Rose in the closing stages. We can confirm the provisional race result then. Paul Rose the winner by nearly a minute ahead of John Woolfit despite that spin. That's at Redgate a couple of laps from home. John Woolfit winning Class B in second place. Paul Dobson a lap down in third in the low cost 7. Steve Harris, despite starting from the pits, comes through to finish fourth ahead of Paul Rotheroe. Brilliant effort by the Zara to take fifth and a Class win in Class E. Sixth goes to Andy Bicknell's Ginetta. Rick Wood wins Class D in the Godzilla Skyline in seventh ahead of Gary Wardle. Ninth for the other Saker of David Clark, and Rick Walker rounding up the top 10 in his JCW Mini. Guy Carter's TVR in 11th ahead of Jamie Cryer, the championship leader, in 12th. David Green 13th in the Honda ahead of Roger Evans, and Chris Marys completing the top 10, the top 15 rather. 16th went to the Honda of Ian Bruce, then Don Hughes in his Peugeot, Richard Hall's Caterham. Bruce Carter wins Class F in his Honda CRX, just ahead of Graham Smith. They were separated by 2 seconds at the flag. Peter Kukulas in the Toyota, and Jake Johnson rounding out the 22 runners, all of whom finished, I'm pleased to report.
And then on the back of the Division 1 truck, a Division 2 truck grid is number 46, Bradley Smith. So all the Division 2 trucks there, by Simon Collins, which is...
Well, next up will be our penultimate race on our coverage this weekend. Oh, hello. Somebody stopped on the slowdown lap. That looks like Paul Dobson at the Craner Curves. Maybe he's run out of fuel. Penultimate race on our coverage next, the final race of the weekend for the British Truck Racing Championship. That's going to be fun on a slippery track like this. There's enough mayhem from the trucks this weekend already. And we close off a little bit later on with the final race of the day, the Caterham Sigmax and Sigma 150s. So Paul Dobson's been got going again. Has he got some damage there to the low cost 7? Doesn't look like it. Maybe he's had a problem at the end of the race on the slowdown lap, but he did get third place. Okay, we'll wait and just double check if we have an amended grid or not for the final truck race of the weekend. I'll just delve into my paperwork. We do have an amended result to race number 13 earlier on. Race 13 on the programme, the fourth race of the weekend for the trucks. John Powell is no longer the winner in Division 2. He got a 10-second penalty, unfortunately, for exceeding the 100-mile-an-hour speed limits. So Michael Oliver has inherited a third win of the weekend. Bad luck, John Powell, and that will affect the grid for race 2 as well, race 5 as well, race 5 of the weekend. Let's have a look at the grid for the final truck race of the day. This is going to be pretty chaotic, I would wager. I'll have a look at the grid in a moment. I think shortly we can go down to Parc Fermé, possibly to hear from our leading runners in the CNC Heads Northwest Sports and Saloons. We'll have the grid for you shortly for our final truck race of the weekend.
Congratulations today, many congratulations on 2 fast wins, 6 or 2 overall victories as well. Let's have a quick see if we can find John before the garage starts to come down for the trucks, which we head down very shortly.
Let's head down to Parc Fermé now then to hear from the CNC Heads drivers.
With what they've achieved, John's on down a bit further down, so I may have just missed my chance to catch John. But Paul Rose, we've heard from him, of course, double victory today, got the CNC Sports League Championship, and
Fantastic drive, we'll touch on that in a moment, but I wanted to talk about the moment on your last lap there when you ended up parking it just over Redgate corner. Little nervy, but we got there in the end. So what was going through your mind when that happened?
Well, I thought I'd thrown it all away then, but fortunately, because the gravel's so wet, I managed to get grip and get out. But the wheels were full of gravel and there was vibrations all through the car. But no, we kept going, it was all right.
Because for those of us not in the know, there's a lot of standing water by Redgate, isn't there?
Yeah, there's sort of 2 pools of water there, and each time I went down to Redgate, I chose a little tighter line, but it really unsettled the car every time. And that lap, it just caught me out. I think I braked a little bit later, and it went round.
A terrific drive from yourself, nevertheless. It was almost flawless, well ahead, a minute ahead of the next car. In terms of what it was like to drive in those conditions, talk us through it, because it looked treacherous, to say the least.
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously Redgate, we know about that. Down through the Craners, there was a lot of water running across the track there. The rest of the circuit wasn't too bad. Into the chicane, I made 2 or 3 errors there, out-braking myself, carrying too much speed in, locking the front wheels. But other than that, it was great. The car's a bit of a handful in the wet, as you probably gather, but it was great fun. And you know, when you're out there leading, sometimes you think, should I back off a bit? And no, you want to keep pushing. You know, the minute you back off, the minute you lose concentration, and things can go wrong. And they nearly did at Redgate. So
absolutely. Well, just before I let you go, obviously the weekend's now over here at Donington for yourselves. How do you look back on it on the end of this Sunday?
It's been a great weekend. We were here testing on Friday morning, and then we had a relaxing day on Saturday. But no, it's been a good weekend, and it's actually nice to have a dry race and a wet race. You know, it just makes it a bit different.
It certainly does. Well, congratulations on a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.